춥지 않은가요? 처음 태어난 이별에서 사는 우리 손자아유.
Coming up on Arirang News, President Yoon announces his Paris initiative to establish order in the global digital world that better serves human freedom, dignity, and welfare. 6 major high-tech European companies, including Imerys in secondary batteries and Continental in future cars, have decided to invest around $940 million in South Korea. The South Korean government is pushing to expand the so-called circular economy in steel, petrochemicals, and batteries by reusing materials for greener production and sustainable growth. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We begin with President Yoon trip to Paris. On the final day, he declared his Paris initiative, setting out the basic principles that the world should follow to ensure digital development is for and not against human well-being. Our presidential correspondent Woo Soo-young leads our coverage tonight.
President Yoon has proposed a new global body and a universal set of norms for digital development to ensure that the freedom and welfare of people around the world are not harmed by technology. The South Korean leader announced his Paris initiative on Wednesday, speaking at the Sorbonne University in the French capital.
발명, 기술 개발, 예술 창작 등 사람과 AI의 콜라보를 통한 놀라운 성과를 만들어내는 한편 그 독창성의 원천과 법적 권리 관계에 관해 엄청난 혼란을 빚어내고 있습니다. 또한 그 과정과 결과에 대한 통제가 불가능해지는 중대한 사회적 리스크를 일으키기도 합니다. 그렇기 때문에 국제적으로 통용되는 보편적 디지털 질서가 중요합니다.
Given the borderless, immediate and connected nature of digital technologies, Yoon said a universal digital order is needed on a global scale. He first and foremost established that digital advancement should serve to expand human freedom, dignity and welfare. Second, Yoon noted that a clear definition of rights to digital use and assets needs to be clarified to promote active transactions and the development of data. In this regard, digital access should be open for all, with digital literacy education crucial for such efforts. Yoon called for global collaboration to bridge digital literacy gaps. Deeming data and digital information public goods, the president emphasised that fair access and equal opportunity for all should be guaranteed. He further raised the need for a fair evaluation and reward system to incentivise investments and development efforts. In order to prevent social harm, Yoon also said information on social risks must be shared and publicised promptly with a regulatory system in place. Any violation would be deemed illegal and sanctioned. Most importantly, the South Korean leader said the international community must join hands in such regulatory efforts. He proposed creating a global body to standardise and initiate such basic norms within the context of the digital economy and society. To establish the institution, he suggested United Nations organisations could lead the conversation, noting that the president was inspired by various discussions, including at the G20, Davos, and the New York Digital Vision Forum last September. His economic secretary said a multilateral set of norms will continue to be developed through intellectual discourse.
It is especially meaningful that the initiative was proposed in Paris, the birthplace of the Enlightenment and the Civil Revolution.
The secretary said the president's initiative is not just limited to artificial intelligence, but can cover the entire digital spectrum and be applied universally in all countries in any stage of their digital transformation. Woo Soo-young, Arirang News, Paris.
Meanwhile, a group of European companies have vowed to invest a total of around $940 million into South Korea. According to the South Korean Industry Ministry on Wednesday, 6 high-tech European companies will invest in various industries, including batteries, electric vehicles, and offshore wind power. The ministry explained that Imerys of France and Umicore of Belgium's investment in batteries will help stabilize the supply chain, while Continental and Nilacast will enhance the ROK Europe alliance in the high-tech industry. Equinor and CIP will invest in offshore wind projects in South Korea that'll contribute to global efforts to tackle climate change. 3 cities, South Korea's Busan, Saudi Arabia's Riyadh, and Rome in Italy, are intent on appealing to the Bureau International de Expositions to host the 2030 World Expo. Our Song Yujin brings us highlights from Tuesday's presentations to the BIE and what to look forward to.
The race to host the 2030 World Expo is gathering pace. The final contenders, South Korea's second-largest city Busan, Saudi Arabia's capital Riyadh, and Rome in Italy. There were 4 candidates initially, but following the Bureau International de Expositions on-site inspections earlier this year, Ukraine's Odessa was ruled out. With 5 months remaining until the final decision, the 4th BIE presentation held on Tuesday was a pivotal moment.
Sometimes, even like on the second or third presentation, quite often you could kind of see the front runner, people kind of drop out, etc. But we're already at the 4th presentation and no one has officially actually dropped out. So it's still a game that anybody could win. So that's extremely, extremely important. And also, this BIE, all the members are actually in attendance.
Aware of the significance, key figures from all 3 countries spearheaded large delegations to Paris to showcase their strengths. Saudi Arabia started off with its ambitious investments.
The Expo 2030 budget of $7.8 billion is catalytic to our broader Riyadh investment plans.
Italy, the host of the 2015 World Expo, leveraged its rich history.
I believe that Rome's trump card is the ability that Rome can guarantee to reconcile tradition and innovation.
Busan, with its promise of a high-tech expo packed with technologies like AI and 6G, highlighted Korea's cultural and economic prowess. Renowned cultural icons such as singer Psy and world-renowned soprano Cho Soo-mi, as well as business tycoons like Samsung Electronics, took part in the campaign. But to gain a clear upper hand, experts suggest that South Korea should embody more universal values.
That South Korea should be more convincing on some very important aspects, such like climate change, environment issues, sustainability, but also inclusivity. And when I think about inclusivity, I think about women's rights, LGBT rights, migrants' rights.
The winner of the bid will be determined this November through an anonymous vote among member states at the BIE's 173rd General Assembly. To secure a victory, a city must receive a 2/3 majority of the ballots. If no city achieves this, the candidate with the fewest votes will be eliminated, and the city that garners the most votes in the final round will win. Song Yujin, Arirang News.
A senior US diplomat says that the US has made it very clear that they believe China has both the capability and responsibility to use its influence to encourage North Korea to return to the negotiating table and to encourage the regime to cease its provocative actions. The U.S. State Department's Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, Daniel Crittenbrink, arrived in Seoul on Wednesday and met South Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Jang Ho-jin to provide a debrief of U.S. Secretary Antony Blinken's recent visit to Beijing. According to the Foreign Ministry, Crittenbrink said the U.S. will continue to communicate with high-level Chinese officials to refrain from any potential conflict, and added that Washington will also closely cooperate with its allies, including South Korea, to create a free and open rules-based international order. China has protested strongly against U.S. President Joe Biden, calling Chinese President Xi Jinping a dictator. The Chinese Foreign Ministry told reporters on Wednesday that the U.S. remarks are extremely absurd, irresponsible, and an open political provocation. Speaking at a fundraiser in California on Tuesday night local time, Mr. Biden suggested that Xi was upset over the Chinese spy balloon being shut down by the US in February this year, as he was unaware of it, adding that this would be a great embarrassment for dictators. The comment came just the day after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made a visit to Beijing, which was aimed at easing tensions between the two countries. A lengthy legal battle between the government here and Elliott Investment Management has come to an end, with South Korea ordered to pay a hefty financial compensation to the American hedge fund giant. Our foreign affairs correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
The South Korean government has been ordered to pay tens of millions of dollars to U.S. hedge fund Elliott Investment Management, marking an end to a legal battle dating back to 2015. The Netherlands-based Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled Tuesday that the Seoul government must pay damages of some $53 million to Elliott. This compensation is around 7% of the $770 million the hedge fund had been seeking from the Korean government. Combined with interest and legal fees, however, the government will be ordered to pay a total of more than $100 million. The dispute began with the controversial merger of two Samsung affiliates, Samsung C&T and Jail Industries. Elliott was once a shareholder of Samsung C&T, holding a 7.12% stake. The hedge fund was against the idea of a merger of both Samsung companies, saying it undervalued Samsung C&T and was contrary to investors' interest. However, the merger went ahead, prompting Elliott to initiate legal action in 2018, demanding hundreds of millions of dollars in compensation from Seoul. It also accused the former Park Geun-hye administration of pressuring the largest Samsung C&T shareholder at the time to vote in favor of the merger. The move was also widely regarded as a scheme to strengthen then Samsung heir Lee Jae-yong's control over the group. The Justice Ministry said it put all efforts into defending the case and will announce future plans soon. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
South Korea's sluggish export figures are expected to see a recovery in the third quarter of the year. According to the Korea International Trade Association on Wednesday, the Export Business Survey Index rose to 108.7 for the July to September period, rising above 100 for the first time in 6 quarters. Such a reading over 100, meaning businesses have an optimistic outlook. Among 15 export items, 10 of them, including cargo ships, chemical products, and chips, are expected to improve. For the country's exports to recover at faster pace, an official from KITA says the government needs to address issues such as a labor shortage and financial constraints while strengthening support for local companies. The capital of South Korea, Seoul City, aims to become the world's largest startup hub. Mayor Oh Se-hoon on Wednesday announced a 1.7 trillion won or $1.3 billion spending package that aims to foster at least 50 unicorn companies by the year 2030. Unicorn meaning startups that eventually become worth $1 billion. The plan will see around 1,000 new firms accommodated in the Seongsu-dong neighborhood in East Seoul, an area that's popular for new and upcoming companies. This as startups have been facing difficulties after the COVID-19 pandemic and the global economic slowdown. The city is also planning to build a robot cluster to develop startups in what are called future industries. Korea is looking to expand its adoption of a circular economy model in steel, petrochemicals, and batteries to fight resource waste and carbon emission. Our business correspondent Shin Ha-young explains.
The government is rolling up its sleeves to expand the so-called circular economy across several local industries. The circular economy refers to a system based on reusing materials or products for sustainable and environmentally friendly production. This was discussed during an emergency ministerial meeting hosted by Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho on Wednesday.
The impact of the circular economy on export competitiveness is expanding in key industries such as steel and petrochemicals. In response, the government will expand the circular economy across our industries to become a new driving force for growth.
During the meeting, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy unveiled its latest strategy, the CE9 project, aimed at promoting recycling and maximizing resource utilization. Under the strategy, the government will seek sustainable growth for 9 industries, including batteries, petrochemicals, and steel. In the battery sector, a core component of electric vehicles, it will support the development of technologies to gather lithium and nickel from used electric vehicle batteries by backing research and development. It will also extend its support to initiatives aimed at producing oil from plastic waste while revising related policies. To establish a recycled resource supply chain, the country plans to enhance technology cooperation between conglomerates and small businesses and promote joint investments in processing facilities. The Trade Ministry said the circular economy is expected to contribute to reducing carbon emissions and stabilizing the supply of resources. The plans were announced amid a rising global circular economy market, which is expected to reach $4.5 trillion by 2030. Meanwhile, during the meeting, the nurturing of deep science-related startups was also discussed. The Ministry of Science and ICT aims to double the number of R&D startups from the previous year's 2,879 to 5,500 by 2027 by injecting roughly $540 million in deep science startups that deal with advanced scientific technologies such as quantum technology and nuclear fusion. 신하영, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, lawmakers in South Korea revise a bill that'll mean stalkers can be subject to criminal punishment regardless of whether the victim has given their consent. This amid growing calls from the public to mend loopholes in the law. Our National Assembly correspondent Han Sung-woo has the details.
Moving forward, stalkers in South Korea can be subject to criminal punishment even without consent from the victims. During a plenary session on Wednesday, the National Assembly expanded the standards to criminalize the act of stalking by unanimously passing some key revisions to the Stalking Punishment Act.
As all 246 of the 246 lawmakers present have voted in support, I declare that the partial revision to the Act on the punishment of stalking crimes has been passed.
A campaign pledge of President Yoon Suk-yeol, the revision had been eagerly sought after the existing law's flaws were exposed in the Shindang Station murder case in Seoul last year, where a 28-year-old woman was stabbed to death by her stalker of 3 years, a 31-year-old man, while he was on trial without detention for stalking. Crime analysts said at the time that stalkers were taking advantage of the consent loophole by threatening victims to withdraw their complaints. Wednesday's revisions will also allow courts, if they judge it necessary to protect victims during hearings, to require stalkers to wear electronic anklets even before conviction. Perpetrators who remove or damage the devices will face imprisonment of up to 3 years or a fine of up to 30 million Korean won, which is around $23,000.
I believe the revised bill contains at least a general overview of most of the things that can be thought of to protect victims of stalking crimes.
The revision also classifies acts of recklessly sending texts, photos, or video files through electronic devices as stalking. Providing the personal information or location of victims to third parties, or stealing such information to impersonate them online will be criminalized as well. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
Tackling issues stemming from aging population and lower participation in the workforce by women. Those were among the key issues addressed at a policy evaluation forum held in Seoul this week. Our Moon Hae-ryun takes us through some of the topics.
South Korea's Policy Evaluation Research Institute held a symposium for the first time since its establishment last year to celebrate its one-year anniversary across 2 days. 15 professors and government agency officials from the United States, Singapore, Japan, Hong Kong, and South Korea came together to present their research and findings about policy evaluation. Following the first day, which hosted sessions on policy evaluations for welfare and tax policy, day 2 on Wednesday was focused on how economic policy should consider the aging population and low participation of women in South Korea's workforce. According to the Korean Statistical Information Service on Monday, there was a 31% increase in the population of those aged over 60 from 2018, and in May this year, there were more people in their 60s in employment than those in their 20s. And according to Professor Ronald Lee from the University of California, Berkeley, this is exactly what the government should be encouraging, incentivizing older adults to work longer and retire later to reduce the need to depend on the younger population for future support. But sometimes policies created with the best of intentions lead to unexpected outcomes. In 2012, paid family leave, enabling parents to up to 3 years off work, was extended to part-time workers. But research showed that this actually had an adverse effect.
Employment fell 34% within the year of first birth and fell 14% 5 years later. So there seemed to be disemployment effects from this 2012 expansion.
Professor Kim Kyung-hwan, the former Vice Minister of the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, spoke of the importance of policy evaluation as a result.
So there are many policies that were designed to help people, but end up making things more difficult for the people. So policy should be evaluated on the basis of outputs, results, not by intention.
He also discussed how vulnerable groups, including older adults in South Korea's aging population, need to be a factor in the government's housing policies going forward.
Government need to focus its policy intervention on improving the housing conditions of the disadvantaged, low-income, young people, the poverty population among the elderly, and so on.
With the Policy Evaluation Research Institute developing its policy evaluation platform for members of the public, experts hope that policies designed to help people actually do help people in the future. 문혜련, Arirang News.
Polish pilots are taking to the air here in the country as part of training sessions to master Korean military aircraft. The sessions follow earlier sales of dozens of South Korea's FA-50 fighter jets to Poland. Our defense correspondent Kim Hyun-sung has details.
Clear for takeoff. Flying high in the skies above Yecheon with the South Korean aircraft TA-50 are pilots not from South Korea but from Poland.
So these pilots have traveled about 8,000 kilometers away from their home country to hone their craft with Korean jets.
Last year, Poland penned a deal with Korea Aerospace Industries to buy 48 of their fighter jets, the FA-50. With the new fleet comes a need for a fresh set of skills to fly these aircraft. And that's why these Polish pilots are here. With 4 months of rigorous training, they've graduated from the trainer versions of the FA-50, the unarmed T-50, and the more advanced TA-50. The pilots have been tested in simulated missions to better prepare them for combat situations. The complex training required a high level of communication and cooperation from both the Korean and Polish pilots.
We've trained to showcase South Korea's superior flight system and domestic jets globally. We hope our FA-50 PL and training contributes to Poland's air defense.
The Polish pilots were particularly impressed by the Korean jet's ergonomic design, swift acceleration, and responsive maneuverability. But what they've gained in South Korea extends beyond new flight skills. Friendships have been forged and cultures exchanged.
Polish pilot team received not only new flight skills in Korea, but also discovered some kind of incredible Korean culture. Many opportunity to find out some kind of new things in Korea.
As Poland expects its first FA-50 jets to undergo flight tests in July and be delivered to Warsaw in August, these pilots are expected to be home in time for those jets' arrival. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News, Yecheon.
Most of the rain has tapered off as of this evening. Overall conditions will start to heat up again tomorrow. Maximum temperatures in Seoul will be hiking up to 26 degrees Celsius. They will be rising for the remainder of the week. For the south of the country, where a high-pressure system is covering the region, more scorching conditions are in store. For Arirang, highs will be topping out at 31 degrees. Due to unstable atmospheric conditions, spotty showers are expected for parts of central regions and the surrounding areas. The Seoul metropolitan area, Gangwon-do and Chungcheong-do provinces will see 5 to 40 millimeters. For the south of the country, where rain is expected, intense UV radiation is in the forecast. While southern regions will see UV ray index in the high to very high range, Jeju Island will be in the extreme category. Morning temperatures will hover around the seasonal average. Tomorrow, Seoul will start off at 18 degrees. Highs in Seoul will get up to 26, Gwangju 29, Daegu and Gyeongju will be reaching 30 degrees. And for this weekend, daytime highs will stay in the 30s for Seoul. For Jeju Island, monsoon rain will start on Sunday. It's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all for this Wednesday night newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news. Have a good night.
Global leader of eco-friendly future materials. Green tomorrow with POSCO.